Hello, I am Dr. Olmert, again in my series of video on the situation in Syria. And I would like to start today's presentation, the meaning of the name of the new group that is supposedly right now the dominant political force in Syria. HTS, the acronym in English, or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Arabic. And to refer to the name Asham, Bilad Asham, as we know, it's an Arabic term which includes the current day states of Syria, Lebanon, Israel, the West Bank, and Jordan. And why do I mention this and emphasize it, and what is the meaning of it? Because it brings us back to where we were in the first presentation, when I mentioned the fact, or dwelled most of the time, on the fact that Syria's political entity, this political entity called Syria, has really had an issue that is plaguing it, has plagued it until now. And this is the question of collective identity. What is the identity of the state? And the very fact that a group that is now in dominance of the politics of Syria does not even use the name Syria as part of its name is an indication of the problem that I refer to. They refer to a geopolitical unit which is not the current day state of Syria. And that is showing to us again what I meant by the question of identity, collective identity of the state of Syria. What is Syria? What is Syria? And this is a problem, because when you talk about Bilad Asham, you immediately refer to neighboring countries that in itself will create or could create troubles with neighboring countries. So I thought that it is important, therefore, to start with, again, emphasizing the meaning of the name Sham, which is the name of this group, which, by the way, was born or was originating from a group called Jabhat al-Nusra, the Front of Victory, that was in itself a coalition of other groups. Some of them mentioned the name Sham. So there is therefore something very significant about that. And remember something else. ISIS also refers to Sham, the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham. Yep. Now, and that brings me to the second point that I would like to raise today in our discussion, and this is the connection between this group and other Islamic jihadist movements, say Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So we know that the founder or the leader of this HTS, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, or Ahmad al-Shara, as his real name, original name, used to be an Al-Qaeda guy, then used to be involved with Abu Musab al-Zarqawi in Iraq. But he has a record of jihadism, and I will emphasize more about him in a minute. But the point I would like to make here is that I don't really attach too much importance, or very little importance, to be honest, to an exact detailed discussion about the differences between one jihadist movement and another, because I believe that we make a methodical mistake here, perhaps. Now, we talk here about organizational and political differences between groups that are competing for power within the context of accepting the general sense of jihadist Salafist doctrines. HTS, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Muslim Brotherhood, and other such organizations are not really different so much than each other in terms of the overall jihadist agenda that they have. And if they have some religious doctrinal differences, this is something that should be analyzed more in detail by Islamic scholars. I don't think it would have too much of a political importance and significance in terms of how they are going to run Syria. And that brings me to Julani. So, of course, the name Julani is because of his desire to show his association, identification, loyalty to the Golan, as we say in Hebrew. But when we look at this man and we look at his religious beliefs, he is a great disciple of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, that's the story here, or that's a big story here. Ibn Taymiyyah is the great Sunni Salafist, jihadist scholar born in 1263. He died in 1328. And he is considered one of the forefathers of radical jihadist Islam. For example, the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia, the Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, the founder of Wahhabism, was very much influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah and some other such radical jihadist Muslim scholars. But the question that I really want to emphasize here with regard to the connection between Julani and the doctrines of Ibn Taymiyyah, and Julani is known to be a disciple of Ibn Taymiyyah, is the fact that Ibn Taymiyyah issued the famous, or some would say the infamous fatwa about the connection between the Alawis and Islam. The Alawites of Syria, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, are worse than the infidels. And there should be a jihad against them. They are forbidden of any contact with Muslims. And think about that. If the world, according to classic Islam, is divided between the believers and the infidels, and the Alawis are worse than the infidels, what's the role of the Alawis in the world of radical Muslims who believe in the doctrines of Ibn Taymiyyah, such as Al-Julani? It's a question. We start getting some responses in the last 24 or 48 hours when we see the pictures, the videos that coming from El-Atakia and the Alawi territory in Syria, which show the indications of the great hatred that exists here between Sunni Muslims, definitely those who accept the doctrines of Ibn Taymiyyah, and the Alawites. There already are reports about executions in El-Atakia. We saw also the video about the burning of the statue and mausoleum of Hafiz al-Assad in his own village in the Alawi territory, which, by the way, I'm so interested that it happened without an immediate reaction by local people, but we'll come to that again momentarily. The point really is that the statements of Al-Julani right now about being more moderate and all kinds of other indications that he would like to take a distance or a departure from his past record of being such a radical Salafist jihadist. But we have to pay attention to them, we have to listen to them, and we have to hope that they really reflect the reality. Now, if you ask me, and if I have to say to you what I think about that, no, I don't believe it. I don't buy that. Time will tell. And I think that we shall still see repercussions of this long-held attitude of disrespect toward the Alawis in Syria by Sunni Muslims, and we shall see more of it in the very near future, and it will not be a pleasant situation to see what can happen and what may happen. So when we talk therefore about the situation with the Alawites, in an interesting way it brings us also to Turkey, which will be the last part of this presentation today, the role of Turkey in all that. Because not everybody may know that there is a large Alawite community also in Turkey, on the other side of the border with Syria. These are the Alawites that used to be in Syria, in the area called Alexandretta, which was annexed by Turkey with French mandatory agreement at the League of Nations in 1939. Now, the number of those Alawites in Syria, in Turkey, is not so clear, but you talk here about few hundreds of thousands, maybe up to 500,000. I believe a little bit less, but maybe up to 500,000. But that's not the main interest, of course, of Turkey in what has happened in Syria and what is happening and what will happen. We talk here, of course, about the fact that Erdogan would like to see a Sunni-dominated Syria rather than Alawite-dominated Syria. There's no question about that. There is the interest of the 2 to 3 million Syrians living today as refugees in Turkey, which he would like perhaps to bring back to Syria. There is the question also of the Kurdish situation. But there is also the question of Halab or Aleppo, where it all started this time. And I need to tell you that even after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, when the Turkish Republic was established and the new ideology of Atatürk, the great leader of the new Turkey, was to distance itself, Turkey and himself, from the Middle East and looking to the West, Turkey still wanted two areas that they dominated until the fall of the Ottoman Empire. It was Mosul in Iraq, which they were forced to abandon the claims to after League of Nations ruling in 1926, and Aleppo in Syria. Aleppo in Syria. They wanted Aleppo. In 1941, when the British were deciding to invade Syria and Lebanon in order to throw the Vichy French from there, they had a problem with small military force. They were not sure how they can handle all this, and the great Winston Churchill sent his minister, foreign minister Anthony Eden, to the Middle East, and he talked to the Turkish foreign minister at that time, Saracoglu, and told him, look, we are going to take Syria and we would like to do it in cooperation with you. Would you like to take the Aleppo area? It's kind of a bribe. The Turkish minister said, oh, no. We have known the Syrians for 400 years. We control them. We don't want troubles with them. Of course, the Turks were afraid of what would be the German reaction. So the British took Aleppo by themselves. And after they did it, surprising or not, they got an approach from the Turkish government. So what about your offer about Aleppo? So then Churchill instructed his ambassador in Turkey to tell them, hey, look, guys, in diplomacy, timing is of the essence. You had your chance, forget it. So the Turks have always had interest in areas of northern Syria, in which, by the way, there is a large, again, something which is not well known to everybody, a large Turkoman minority. The number of Turkoman people in Syria may be up to 10% of the entire Syrian population, which may be in today's numbers 1.5 million or so, maybe less, but it's a significant number, and most of them are, again, concentrated along the border between Syria and Turkey, on the Syrian side, in that sense, Turkmen. And so why do I mention all that? Because when we talk about what could be the Islamic approach of the current group that is in domination of large part of Syria, but not all of it, again, something that we should discuss more tomorrow, the HTS, one can expect that Turkish influence will be such that they will have to bear in mind what the Turks expect them to do or not to do. And even though Erdogan is the champion of radical Islamism in his own version, I don't believe that he would like to see a very unruly, militant, jihadist Islamic movement on his borders, on the other side of it in Syria. But the fact is that he was behind the current situation. The opposition, the HTS forces, came out from the Idlib province, which was under control of them with Turkish support for all those years, and it could not have happened had it not been for this Turkish support. So Turkey, therefore, is emerging right now as a very dominant and forceful force in Syria after the fall of the Assad regime. But what will be the reaction of other countries, including, by the way, Israel, which is not so much, by the way, it's very significant, then we shall see all that in our presentation tomorrow. So, thank you.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.